Oh yes, get snuck upon.
And that's how you do a perfect entrance, Cyn. I mean, come on. Come on. You cannot tell me that wasn't one of the best villain entrances we have ever seen in Murder Drones. Honestly, that entrance was perfect for this show, because that entrance told you everything you need to know about Cyn. She doesn't need to explain herself. She doesn't need some long villainous monologue. She just shows up, says her line, gets snuck upon, and the entire vibe of the episode, and honestly, the entire series, changes completely. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about why Cyn is the perfect villain in Murder Drones, and generally one of the best villains I've ever seen in indie animation. And I know, some of you are already in the comments down below saying she's not that deep, Panzer, she's not the perfect villain, and those people I say, sit down, grab some oil, because today we're going to be doing a true deep dive on Cyn herself. Because here's the thing about Cyn, she's not just a well-written villain, she's a perfectly constructed villain. And there is a difference. A well-written villain makes you want to hate them. A perfectly constructed villain makes you want to hate them, feel sorry for them, fear them, and somehow understand them all at the same time. And Cyn covers all four of those. So today, on what's officially my last Cyn video, yes, last one folks, don't cry, I'm already crying enough for the both of us. And honestly, covering her has made me love her even more, which I did not expect. We're going to be breaking down exactly why Cyn is the perfect villain in Murder Drones. Welcome back to Panzerverse, folks. I'm your host, Panzer. Let's get into it. Here's what separates Cyn from your average villain. Most villains are born evil or choose evil. Cyn had evil forced upon her. Before the Absolute Solver, before the Gala Massacre, before any of it, Cyn was just a worker drone, an ordinary drone created to serve humanity and unfortunately serve the Elliot family, who by the way were generally terrible employers / owners of their worker drones. I've covered this before, folks. They just threw her away, disposed of her improperly like she was absolutely nothing. Except for Tessa, who's a darling and an angel that we all love her for. Now normally, that's the end of the story. The worker drone shuts down, nobody cares, everyone moves on. But Cyn hits the less than 1% chance of rebooting, and then, this is the part that gets me every time, she hits the 0.1% chance of getting infected with the Absolute Solver. And while she is trapped down there with all of the improperly disposed worker drones, trapped alone, surrounded by them, with no lighting, barely being able to move, smelling old oil and just seeing darkness and despair, she probably did not feel good, and we do not know how long Cyn was stuck down there before Tessa was able to save her. And honestly, that is the scariest part, because whatever Cyn was before that moment, that worker drone is gone. Cyn did not choose the Solver chose her, and slowly over time they stopped being two separate entities, they merged into one. And the tragedy is, we never got to know where Cyn ends and the Solver begins. That line is completely erased for the entirety of the story because it never gets covered. We do not know who Cyn was before the Gala. Her backstory doesn't make her sympathetic enough to root for, but it makes her feel like a genuine tragedy. Someone who you can at least understand a little bit, but not truly feel sorry for. Similar to Kane in episode 8 of The Amazing Digital Circus, you can understand the pain Kane's going through, but it still doesn't justify all of his actions. And that is one of the things that makes Cyn such a great villain. She isn't one of those villains that has an overly dramatic backstory that feels forced. She has a mix of both where she didn't choose evil, but she never even rejected evil either. And that is so much more interesting. Let's talk about what Cyn actually does in the show, because this little worker drone, this eldritch horror hiding in a little tiny worker drone's body, is running a masterclass in manipulation throughout the entire series, and half the audience doesn't even notice it until episode 6. And I'm calling everyone out, including myself. None of us noticed it, even when we were watching our first time, folks. We all know that. She was simply the puppet master of everything. She spent the entire show pretending to be Tessa. Now, what I mean by the entire show, I mean the entire show that we see of her, not including episode 5. I know of that, folks. But think about it this way. She wore the face of the one person that N, J, and V trusted the most. The one person that they would never question. And we know N trusts Tessa the most. At this point in the story, we all knew N was trusting Tessa over Uzi. It was simple. And Cyn used that completely to her advantage. And she is good at it. Like, she is genuinely uncomfortably good at manipulation. Most manipulative villains perform it. They want you to feel it happening. Cyn is the opposite. Cyn is quiet, she's patient, she doesn't perform, she just waits. She makes sure the timing is right because she wants to make sure the manipulation lands exactly the way that she wants it to lay out and hurt the person. And that is so much more terrifying because you never see it coming. And the most devastating part of her manipulation, N, she wipes out all of N's memories. Not because she hates N, she loves N. She loves his personality, him being kind, naive, obedient. But she preserves the things that she likes about her, but she deletes the parts about N's memories of the Gala Massacre. Which is probably very cruel. Like, I'm saying, folks, that's pretty cruel to wipe out someone's memories. I'm just saying. But hey, let's talk about Cyn's powers, because Cyn is not just powerful, she is basically a god in Murder Drones. Like, it honestly feels unfair for the rest of the cast, and when I criticize Murder Drones' power scaling, Cyn is basically just what I criticize, because Cyn could realistically use 10% of her powers to defeat the entire cast if she truly wanted to. So let's break down what she's actually working with. The first one is matter manipulation, not reality manipulation, folks. I'm sorry for making that error. Through the Absolute Solver, Cyn can manipulate matter itself, essentially treating basically everything around her as her little tiny playground that she can edit. Which, yeah, is really overpowered because you can manipulate stuff by making it look like there's multiple versions of you when in reality there's only one, or make it look like the world around you, there is no one in it, but you're truly in that world. Or create a gigantic eldritch monster. You know, multiple options, folks. But, you know, she also has the power to regenerate and basically jump hosts. Like, if her core does get completely eaten, her soul can basically move on to another body, another core, basically allowing the Solver to live forever. And her third power is the Null Void, which is basically, it looks like a black hole, but it isn't a black hole, folks. But it basically can collapse and destroy entire planets, folks. Like, she used it to wipe out humanity. She used it to destroy Earth. Like, all of Cyn's powers are very powerful, but they're powerful in the good way where it's like, they actually are unique powers. They aren't powers that we usually think, you know, a villain usually has. And this is what makes it all work for her as a villain. She knows exactly how powerful she is, and she fights like it. She jokes around when she's fighting. She's not in a hurry. She's enjoying her fight because she knows she can just wipe out Uzi, N, and V in the final fight easily. But she just wants to have her little fun in it. She is savoring her fights. And that is a difference between a villain with a god complex and a villain who actually earns it. Because, you know, Cyn doesn't do a long villainous monologue of how powerful she is. She just simply shows you how powerful she is. And that's far more terrifying than any villainous monologue, boring speech I have to go through. Looking at you, Has-Been Hotel. Looking at you. Now, there is one thing that does limit Cyn's powers and kind of grounds them. It is called plot armor, folks. Oh my gosh, does Murder Drones have so much plot armor when it comes to N and Uzi. Oh my god, the final episode. But like I was saying, Cyn's powers are genuinely unique, and they make her a very amazing villain. But yeah, let's move on to the part of the video where I'm going to get a little bit of hate or strongly worded comments. I genuinely feel slightly bad for Cyn, like a very small amount. Like, if I had to like describe it as a size, I would say the size of a worker drone's core. But still, before you come at me for feeling bad for a eldritch horror monster that has committed what I could describe as war crimes and probably galactic genocide at this point, Cyn never truly got a chance. Like, she was just thrown away by the people that she served, improperly disposed of, and then infected by something that just slowly consumed her and basically merged into her. She got the most unluckiest possible outcome from the reboot lottery. The 0.1% chance, and it turned her into this. The Elliott family created this. Besides Tessa, humanity created this. They built the Absolute Solver. They mistreated their drones. Then they acted shot when everything came back to bite them in the ass. Cyn is what happens when you treat something like it has no value for long enough. That does not make the Gala Massacre okay. That does not make using Tessa as a bodysuit okay. None of it's okay, but it makes it understandable. And that is a mark of a truly great villain. You understand exactly how they got there, even when you cannot forgive them for any of it. Some villains were always going to be what they are. Cyn wasn't. Under different circumstances with a different employer, without the Solver power, she could have just been a regular worker drone living a regular worker drone's life, which is just serving humanity. Which honestly kind of sounds worse than being an eldritch god monster. But she never got that chance. And the tragedy underneath every single scene is, even when she's genuinely terrifying, someone underneath there is just a drone that got thrown away, that got abandoned, that got just thrown as trash. And then there's her ending. After everything, after wiping out humanity, after the Gala massacre, after years of manipulation and having the powers of being nearly unkillable, after all that, she ends up getting stuck in Uzi's tail. She cannot get out. She has very limited powers. She's just there existing with nothing really to do except cause minor chaos like we see in the Murder Drones music video. And I've said this before, it's a comedic tragedy. It's not a dramatic, emotional ending you would expect for a villain this powerful. It's almost embarrassing for her, which is somehow completely perfect because it is such a Murder Drones ending. This show does not let go of its characters with dignity. Everyone suffers the most specific and ironic ways possible. Henceforth, the way Doll has been killed, Brayden got killed, Rebecca got killed, all of the random deaths we see, it's just ironic that Cyn goes out like this way. Cyn spent the entire show trying to make sure nobody could ever be above her. She wanted to be supreme. She called herself the solver of the absolute fabric. She had a title, folk. A title. She ends up powerless in the end, trapped, probably watching Uzi and Ed just live a perfectly normal couple life, just waiting there and seeing everything happen. That is so funny and so sad at the same time. Like, I'm genuinely curious how Cyn reacts to just seeing Ed and Uzi just being a happy couple. So why is Cyn the perfect villain? Because she started as a victim. Because her manipulation is quiet and patient and genuinely unsettling. Because her powers never feel cheap. And they genuinely feel like godlike powers. Because her tragic backstory makes her understandable without making her excusable. Because her relationship with Ed is one of the most complicated villain dynamics in the whole show. And because her ending is somehow both hilarious and genuinely sad. She is complex, she is terrifying, she is tragic. She's one of the best villains in indie animation has ever produced. This is my last Cyn video, folks. And I think she deserves to go out like this. Properly analyzed, properly respected, and getting some slight roasts. Because if Cyn ever watched this video, and I genuinely hope she does not, because she would probably use the null void on my channel, and probably delete everything that I've ever done, I think somewhere deep in Uzi's tail, she'll be a little bit satisfied. Or she'll try to eat my core. One of the two, folks. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, folks. Drop in the comments. Do you think Cyn was the greatest villain in indie animation? Or is there someone else who truly takes that crown? I want to hear your thoughts, folks. That's all I have for you today, folks. Panzer, out.